Hey, what's up guys? In this video I want to talk about caloric cycling. Now a lot of people don't know what caloric cycling is, and actually I was just talking to someone the other day about it who had not heard about it before. But caloric cycling is a very effective technique to use when it comes to losing fat, or if you're looking to bulk up, put on some lean size, it could be a very useful tool for that as well. Now, caloric cycling, what does that basically entail? Caloric cycling entails you cycle through different amounts of calories, either on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. Or you can play around with it and be different with it beyond that. But you do it in a way where you either head towards the goal of getting leaner or putting on size, or you can actually just do it as a way of maintaining where you are currently at right now. Now, when it comes to how many calories per day you should be having and how many calories you should cut and then add on based on your cycling method, it really depends. It really depends on what you think your body's going to respond to best. For example, when I was using caloric cycling about a few years ago and I was looking to cut, I would do caloric cycling more on a weekly basis. I was cutting for a photo shoot. I was doing caloric cycling on a weekly basis where 1 week I would eat 15 calories per pound of body weight, and then the next week I would eat 13 calories per pound of body weight, and then the next week after that I would eat 14 calories per pound of body weight. And then depending on how I was responding, how my body was responding to that, I would either keep up that 3-week cycle and just go through it a couple of times, or I would change it up if I wasn't responding to it as I would like. So let's say I go through that 3-week cycle once and I'm not making the progress or getting leaner that I want to. Instead of going and starting again that 3-week cycle, I could, after that 3rd week of eating 14 calories per pound of body weight, I could go to 12 calories per pound of body weight and see what that does. But here's the thing about caloric cycling is that you don't want to go too extreme. You don't want to do too much so that your body can't really respond to it as well. And you don't want to go to too much of an extreme when it comes to cutting or adding calories, because you don't know exactly how you're going to respond to it mentally and emotionally. So that's a very big thing to consider. This is also huge when it comes to bulking, using caloric cycling for bulking. So if you're trying to put on weight, and let's say your normal caloric intake right now is about 3,000. So what I'd recommend you do is you go 1 to 2 weeks eating between 3,300 to 3,500 calories. See how your body responds to that. See how you mentally and emotionally respond to that, and see if you can keep up with it, because you'd be surprised how much just 300 to 500 extra calories, how much that makes a difference in terms of your overall food volume on a daily basis. And so you do that, and to avoid putting on too much fat, this is another thing about caloric cycling that's really cool, is that in order to avoid putting on too much fat, you would intentionally go back to where you were before when it comes to bulking. Go from 3,300 to 3,500 back to 3,000. And you would stay there for a bit in order to, again, get your body in a place where it would be more primed up for taking in lots of calories. Because when you take in a lot of calories, like when you put yourself in a caloric surplus, your body tends to adjust to it pretty quickly. Now, you can just stay in that caloric surplus, but what can happen if you do that without caloric cycling, without intentionally cutting back for a bit, you are going to inevitably start putting on more fat. That's just how the body works. And you can go that route if you're okay with it, but if you want to avoid putting on as much fat as possible while you're bulking, then you want to go back to where you were before you put yourself in a caloric surplus. So that's just an example, a quick example of how you can go about it when it comes to bulking. I gave you a quick example of how to go about it when you're cutting. Now, what about a daily basis? What do I really mean by that? So a daily basis, doing caloric cycling on a daily basis can be good for all three of the things that I mentioned before again. Cutting, maintaining, and bulking. But you have to be a bit more strategic about it than versus when you would do it just on a weekly basis. And you have to be very focused and precise with your measurements of, again, how many calories you are getting in each day and how you want to go about the caloric cycling on a daily basis. So if you're willing to put in the amount of effort that is required in order to do it effectively, daily caloric cycling can be a useful tool as well. Now, here's a cool thing about caloric cycling is that, let's say you like to stick to your nutrition plan, and that's very important to you, but you also want to be able to go out with friends and eat every once in a while. So here's a cool thing about caloric cycling is that you can actually go out with your friends or on a date, and you can do a form of caloric cycling when you go out so you can avoid putting on fat or just avoid overeating, basically. What you do is you intentionally undereat. You choose a reasonably healthy meal option. If you go out for lunch or breakfast or for dinner, you just choose a reasonably healthy option, number one. And then you choose something that is going to be a smaller meal than what you've normally been eating. And so here's what happens with that, is that let's say you stick to your diet all the way until dinner. And then dinner, you go out and you get a meal that's smaller than what you normally eat. You're gonna put your body in a position where it's gonna be hungry for food, and it's also gonna be more primed up for consuming your normal amount of calories when you get back into that. So let's say that for your last meal of the day, again, you go out with friends, you eat dinner, your body's gonna be put in a state where it's gonna be hungry. And so what can happen for the next day is that your body's going to be in a better position to use the calories that you normally get through your meals effectively. So it's going to be able to burn fat more effectively. Your metabolic rate is going to be better. Your metabolism is going to be better. And you're going to be actually able to put on lean muscle better by that. And so that's just a cool thing that you can add in with caloric cycling if you want to be able to go out with people every once in a while to eat, but still to stick to your nutrition plan overall, like 95% of the time. That's something that you can do as a form of caloric cycling to make sure that you don't crash your diet, you don't destroy your progress or anything just by one meal. Anyways, this video turned out to be a little bit longer than what I expected, but I hope I gave some valuable information with talking about caloric cycling a little bit. I think it's a very strategic thing you could do when it comes to either losing weight, losing fat, maintaining what you already have right now, or with bulking. And so if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.